Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way, and I have to say I'm pretty excited about this one because this time around we're going to be reviewing the G1 Beast Wars Predacon Megatron. Now, this is the 2021 reissue. This is the first time that I've ever had a chance to get a close-up of this guy, and I'm really excited to bring this review to you. So let's go ahead and get started, not waste any more time. We'll bring that box in for the close-up. Right off the bat, he sprays a water cannon blast. Yay! And he's the evil Predacon Megatron, Beast Wars Transformers. There is the artwork on the front, little Kenner logo down there. Flip it over to the side, you have Beast Wars Transformers, more artwork, big eye, Megatron. On the back, there's a lot going on. We'll start right here, and I will just let that sit for a moment. If you want to pause and read it, feel free to do so. And we'll come over here. You have Beast Wars, the Transformers, bio and tech specs, clip and save, or just leave it on the box like I will. So you can take a look at all that if you choose to do so. He does have secret weapon locations. And down here, this is his function and a little bit about him. And then over here, manufacturing information, warnings, Kenner logo, Hasbro logo. You have Ultra, you have Mega. All right, over here on this side, Beast Wars, Megatron, Megatron. And up top, T-Rex turns into evil Predacon Commander Robot. And down low, more manufacturing information, more warnings, different languages, and sad baby. Alright, so that is it for the outside of the packaging. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what came inside that box.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
Alright, Brad Pitt, take it easy. This is what's in the box. Just chill, dude. Alright, we're going to start with a little sheet of warnings and your instructions. And then the only other items that come inside that box other than the big man himself are his projectiles that he shoots from his hip guns. So you get two of these. They're identical. There is no paint on them. They are just black molded plastic. So let's just focus on one of these for a moment. So there's not really a whole lot going on with these. I guess they look kind of cool. But yeah, that is it. So this is going to be a pretty short segment. What's in the box, Brad Pitt? That's it. All right, so let's go ahead and bring old Big and Ugly in for his close-up. And here he is, the retro bot of the half hour, Mr. Predacon Megatron. So let's bring this guy in and take a look at what he has to offer. And we'll start as we always do with that beautiful face. I'll say this, he has really good oral hygiene. Look how white those teeth are. I don't see a single cavity anywhere. But yeah, he's got a good amount of detail there. He's got the old Megatron bucket head that's always good to see. And pretty accurate to the G1 Beast Wars cartoon. Coming on down to that chest. Good detail, but really no paint apps to speak of here. And coming down to his codpiece. Similar situation here. You've got that nice purple plastic. No painted applications anywhere on there though. And then coming down to these hips, you have these ginormous hip guns. Let me get this one out of the way so we can see a little more clearly what's going on with that hip. Get some detail there on that thigh. And utilizing this hip gun, we'll take a look at the detail that is available inside those. So good molded in detail inside those hip guns. Coming down to those legs. Just good. A little bit of dinosaur look there. And then much like Optimus Primal, you do get just some nice flat plastic. He looks very sinewy right here. So, you know, he didn't miss leg day. That's a good thing. All right. Coming up to the arms, we're going to do each of these arms because they are different. So you got a whole lot of, it almost looks like a crab-shaped tail right there. Now, he does have a gimmick here where you can push this and it moves the arm and opens and closes it, but it doesn't work very well. So I prefer to just use it like this, where you hold one of those ends and do that. And so you get that action going on, some spring-loaded opening and closing action for that claw. And coming up here, a little bit of detail on the arms, and then you've got a bit of that dinosaur back as part of the shoulder. Coming over here to this arm, he's got a big old T-Rex head hanging off, as he should. And good Good detail all throughout there. And he's got a little bit going on under here for that arm. Not a whole lot. All right, and then turning him around. Whoa, before we do, the one thing that I didn't mean to skip it, but he does have his kind of batwing head there. This is his mutant mask that, let's go ahead and look at it now. So there is his mutant mask that opens up or closes. So no detail on, or no paint on there, but if you look close, he does have some molded in detail on either side. And turning our attention to the back, there's just a whole lot of T-Rex going on back there. So you have these little T-Rex arms, and you have this T-Rex body, the chest area, and T-Rex legs. You know, there's really not a lot to see as far as the back goes. Now, as far as articulation goes for this guy, for being a figure that is of a certain age, he's got a decent amount of articulation. I'm just going to keep his mask closed. It makes life a little bit easier here. So you can move that head side to side, up and down, and all the way around if you want to. So good range of motion there. At the shoulder, his arm is already up as far as it will go at that shoulder joint. And you can take that all the way around if you choose to do so. And then you do have a point of rotation just underneath that for the bicep. And then you have an elbow bend that is pretty generous, I think. And then, of course, we saw this articulation down here with this mechanized motion. Let's go ahead and do the right arm. Right arm is a big old T-Rex head, so you can open this up and close it. It doesn't stay open because this is actually a squirt gun in here. We'll take a look at that when we get to the accessories, if you will. But the shoulder, you can raise him up about that high, and you do, just like the other arm, you have this point of rotation right here, but you also have a point of rotation right here. So you can move that around and angle that any direction you choose. And let's move these arms up out of the way so we can get to the next part. Oh, it looks like he's trying to, oh, he's just covering his face. Oh, he's so embarrassed. These hip guns, I'm just going to pull them out and I'm going to move them down so they're out of my way for now. All right, do the same thing over here. So now we can focus on the waist rotation. So he does have waist rotation that you can take advantage of. And for these hip guns are just absolutely ginormous. So they constantly get in the way, particularly when you're transforming. But it's a nice bit to have here. But getting back to the actual articulation here. So you don't really get anything as far as thigh rotation, but you can take these hips out and do a full split with them if you want. And he can kick forward 2 clicks. And if you move this out of the way and get that hip gun out of his way, you can get a pretty considerable back kick out of this guy. All right, so coming down to the knee, you do get a point of rotation at the knee, and you get just over 90 on that knee bend. And then down here at the feet, the only thing you get are just the toes and the heel motions. So you can collapse those in. Typically this is for T-Rex mode, but I have found I like him with those out even in T-Rex mode. It gives him far more stability. Now, for whatever reason, if you wanted to, you could take those up that high. And the toes are up about as high as they get, but you can take them way low. So if you've got something going on where you want to do that, hey, go for it. Have fun. All right, show your face. So that is it as far as the articulation goes for Old, Big, and Ugly. So let's go ahead and talk about those accessories real quick. Yes, I know that his arm is in a strange position, but that's because I wanted to have the clearance for these guys down here, which is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about those hip guns, which are his 2 main accessories. So these are spring-loaded projectiles. So, just the word of warning, don't aim these at your face or your eyes or the face or eyes of anyone else. That being said, let's go ahead and demonstrate how these work. So there's really nothing to it. You've got your 2 little projectiles that you put in, and then you have this button on either side, and you can just squeeze that, and whee! And you can do the same thing over here. You can squeeze it, whee! And that is pretty much it as far as these go. Now you can adjust these. It's recommended to pull these out before you try to rotate them up or down, because there are gears in here that you could strip out potentially. They don't hold very solidly anyway, so you know, even with a little bit of force, they're going to come down and move on you. But I try, best practice is just pull those out and move them before you do. But you know, you can move them out and change the direction. You wanted Megatron, you know, pointing them downward is, oh no, a spider, ooh, you know, one of those. And because, you know, other than Tarantulas and Black Arachnia, let's go ahead and say that he's afraid of spiders. Sounds good to me. Now, regarding this is a squirt gun. You put water in it. I'm not going to. You can, when you get your copy, you can feel free to do so. But you just take this assembly out, and then you fill it up with water. And that's your little stopper right there, that white piece. And then you can stick it back in his mouth and collapse that up. And then when you open this mouth up, it compresses it, and he squirts water out. So good times if you want to do that. That's just not my bag. So that's it for accessories. Let's go ahead and get into transformation and get this guy into his T-Rex mode. Now let's go ahead and get Megatron transformed into his T-Rex, shall we? So the first thing that we'll do is we're going to close this mask up if you haven't already done so. And just give that a squeeze. Close that up. And then you're going to take this arm right here. You're going to straighten it out. You're going to rotate that 180 degrees. That way all this is out of your way, plus you have it in the correct orientation. So, you know, when in doubt, make sure the colors match. Green up top, green up top. Come over here to this arm. You're going to rotate that, make sure that the spine aligns. Rotate that up, and then you're going to collapse it up right into that section, just like that. All right, after you've done that, as I've noted earlier, these are going to keep getting in your way, so if you want, go ahead and pull them out now. And we're just going to keep maneuvering around these. Now, back here, you are actually going to separate this chest assembly from the back. So you're going to give this a pull. That's going to pull that out for you. And then you are going to make sure that you give this a pull right there. You've got a slider right there. So make sure that this is pulled out. If it's pushed in, oops, I didn't want to do that with his head. If it's pushed in like that, make sure you've got it pulled out all the way. All right, after you've done that, you're going to give this guy a rotation. So the way to know which way you need to go is the head always needs to be back this way, past the chest and the arms. So give this a rotation of 90 degrees. Collapse that head in, and then collapse that slider back in right there. So give that a push, and that way you've got that collapsed in. Now what you can do, you're not going to do it yet, but what you have the ability to do now is to bring these chest pieces up and then collapse this in. But before you do that, you need to get this back tail section ready to go. So again, with these, get them out of your way. You can now bring these legs down and take them down until they stop clicking, essentially. So bring them down, bring them down, bring them down, bring them down until they stop clicking, and then you know you've made it. All right. Now for this is, I don't want to use the word tricky, but doing it on camera takes a little bit of dexterity, so bear with me here, because what's going to happen is as you collapse this tail section is going to come down, and you're going to need to capture this tail section with these tabs right here. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to do when you're doing it on camera and trying to time everything, so bear with me. I'm going to try to capture it. And yeah, all right, we got it first time. So once you capture that right there, that holds this tail in place. So now that we're here, next step is to bring these chest pieces up, but it's going to take some maneuvering around the hip guns. So move your hip guns whatever way you need to in order to get the rest of this around. And then once you get this up here, his head's getting in the way, then this just snaps together. So give all that a squeeze, give it a snap, make sure you are nice and secure. And you can turn your attention down here to these hips. Angle those so they're at the right rotation. Come over here, do the same thing. Angle those so they're at the right rotation. And gee, I wonder what's wrong. Collapse this chest in. And then when you straighten these legs out, you're simply going to turn these 180 degrees at the knees on either side. So that way you have Mr. Megatron angled the way he should be. And then take these little T-Rex arms and bring them down. Oops. Don't use your thumbs to slide those around though. And don't come loose on me. There's no talking back. Now, one thing that I do, and this is totally up to you, however you want to do it, I like to give him a little bit of a wider stance. So that way his legs are a little bit more spread, and yeah, there's a little bit more of a gap that you see right here. But I like the way he looks a little bit better that way, because I think like this, he looks like he's doing a pee-pee dance, and I don't think the leader of the Predacons or a T-Rex should look like they're doing a pee-pee dance. But there you have Mr. Megatron in his T-Rex mode. And of course, now that we have him in this mode, let's go ahead and take a look at those details in his T-Rex attire. So we'll start with that big old head. And you can see good molded in detail there. He's got those dead lifeless eyes just like Optimus Primal does. He's got big old white teeth. Again, the oral hygiene on this guy is second to none. And if you open his mouth up, you can see that squirt gun does look like a tongue. So that's pretty cool. All right, and looking up underneath, just looking at that neck, you do have a lot of nice textured plastic right there. Got his little T-Rex arms. And, you know, it looks like he's getting the petty, but he's not getting the manny. So a little bit of paint right there would have been nice on those little claws. And good detail all the way along the side here. Of course, we've seen those legs earlier in robot mode, but always worth taking another look. You'll notice that I did not collapse these in. As I stated earlier, you certainly could if you want to, or any angle in between, but I prefer having them like that because these heel spurs back here sure make it a lot easier to keep this guy standing upright. Now, as far as his dino chest, here's his little dino pecs. So it looks like he's not skipping any upper body day either, even with tiny arms. And coming down here, look at those feet. Ooh, smell like corn chips. And up here, oh, I didn't mean to pop him open. There is his back or top. So all things being equal, I think as far as a dinosaur, he looks pretty darn good. Now, as far as articulation goes in this mode, there's not a lot. Okay, so, you know, you do get the mouth opening, but there's nothing at the head. You can't really tilt the head because he's locked in right there because of this transformation. These little arms are on ball joints, so you can get a little bit of in and out. You can take them down that far, and you can take them back that far. And then at the hips down here, so just something to note, like I said, you can bring these hips out a couple clicks. Like if you really want to, like a really super wide stance, you could do something like that. Looks like he's, you know, ready to pounce. But the hip joint up here, this is the one you don't really want to move this forward or back. It's kind of locked in because of that tail anyway. So everything you're going to do as far as the orientation of the leg forward or back is going to be done at the knee. So you can come that far forward and you can do that far back. And then we already talked about the articulation in the heels and the toes when he was in robot mode. So do what you want there. And there is nothing at the tail. So there's no articulation there whatsoever. So what you see is what you get. All right. So that wraps it up for the details and the articulation for Megatron in his beast mode. So let's go ahead and get into those beast mode comparisons. For our first alt mode comparison, here we have the G1 Beast Wars Predacon Megatron on the left, next to the Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron Beast Megatron on the right. And we'll take a minute here to kind of do a deep dive and see these guys from a few different angles so you can see the similarities and the differences. So here they are just kind of facing each other. Here we see them both looking right at us. Here's a side view. Here we see them from the back. And here we have them face to face. For our next comparison, here we see the G1 Beast Wars Megatron next to the Studio Series 86 Grimlock. And here's a fun one. Here we see the G1 Beast Wars Megatron next to the G1 Beast Wars Optimus Primal. And it's really cool seeing these two guys together. Next comparison is the Nemesis Primal figure that came with the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Worlds Collide 4-pack. But this guy is a mold mate of the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Optimus Primal. So you can see how the G1 Beast Wars Megs looks next to a redo, the War for Cybertron redo of Optimus Primal in their beast modes. And our last beast mode comparison is the Predacon from Transformers Prime. This is the Legend Scale version of Predacon. Alright, that does it for the alt mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get into that transformation. So to get Megatron transformed back into his robot mode, you're just going to take these little arms, swing those back so that way they are tucked away out of your way. Come down here to those legs and squeeze those legs together. Make sure they are nice and tight to try to keep them out of your way for the next step, which is splitting this chest area right here. So just take that, split that on both sides. Try to get these over your hip guns as well as you can. Like I said earlier, those hip guns will keep getting in your way, so just do what you can, do your best. While you're back here, take this chest piece and drop that down. And now that you're here, you're going to take that head, you're going to lift that head up out of there, and then you're going to grab onto this whole thing and give it a pull. That way that lifts that up out of the way. And now you're going to rotate this 90 degrees, just like that. And now you can bring this up, bring that head up. Stay up, would you? Now you're going to collapse all this together. So you have these tabs back here that are going to go into these slots back here. So if I stop trying to push my head down, you're going to lift that up 90 degrees, and then you're going to give this a shove, and then you're going to line those tabs up and give that a squeeze, and you have that upper body, that chest area completed. Alright, so now that you're here, take those legs, bring those down on those ratchets, swing these around 180 degrees, and pull those hip guns out and rotate those around just to do your best to get them out of your way. Tuck this way back here, so you should have something that looks about like that. And then over here for this arm, you're just going to get your hands in these gaps right there, get your fingernails in there, and give these a split. And when you do, when you open this up, that will allow this spring-loaded part to come out like that. So, just like that. Okay? Bring these down a little bit more, and give that a turn. And you have that arm complete. So then we'll turn our attention to this arm over here. So give this a tug, and that will separate that out. Give that a turn, and if you want to give this a turn, feel free to do so. And then you have that arm complete. So now you can come down here to his hip guns, rotate those around to the desired angle, and squeeze those in, and squeeze them in. And your last step is just to open up his mask, and you are done. There you have the G1 Beast Megatron back in his robot mode. So what we'll do now is we will go ahead and get into those robot mode comparisons and see how he stacks up against some figures. Alright, so just like we did for Beast Mode, for the robot mode, the first comparison that we're going to do is a comparison against his modern counterpart. So this is the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom T-Rex, which is an exact replica of 100% everything mold mate of the War for Cybertron Beast Megatron. So he's going to be our stand-in today and our model for the comparisons. So starting off with, you can see those two guys facing you or facing the camera, and you can see the similarities and the differences there from the old school on the left to the modern iteration on the right. Here we can see them both from the right side. Here we see them from their left side. Here they are from the back. And here they are back to back. And moving on to the next comparison, here we see the G1 Predacon Megatron next to the G1 Maximal Optimus Primal, and boy, these two just look fabulous together. This is cool. Here he is next to the War for Cybertron Kingdom, Optimus Primal. Here we see him next to the Studio Series 86 Leader Class Grimlock. And our last bot mode comparison is the Legends class Predacon from Transformers Prime. Alright, that wraps up the bot mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. Alright everybody, so let's go ahead and talk about the final thoughts on this G1 Beast Wars Predacon Megatron reissue. Before I begin, I just want to say that all my opinions on this are really predicated on the nostalgia factor. So what I mean by that is if this were a brand new figure that Hasbro had just released and it was supposed to be the latest and the greatest, my scores would definitely be vastly different. So my scoring here and my opinions on this are all based on the fact that this is a reissue of a 20 plus year old design. So just keep that in mind as I walk through some of my points here. So in short, speaking of the nostalgia factor, I think that if you're a fan of Beast Wars, if this is something that you didn't have a chance to pick up the first time through, 20 plus years ago, kind of like what I did, I think this is almost a no-brainer. You're going to want to pick this guy up, especially if you have collected the new versions, if you will, from the Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom. I just think it's a blast comparing these original guys, these G1s, to the modern figures with the modern engineering and design behind them. So let's go ahead and go through some of these points. So starting off with the aesthetics, the overall look of the figure. Again, keeping in mind that this is all kind of the nostalgia factor here, I'm giving this guy a 9 out of 10 on those aesthetics. I think that he looks so cool in his dinosaur mode. He looks good in his robot mode, but I think the robot mode could have definitely had a few more paint apps, and it would have paid off, would have made the robot mode look even that much better. So in the dinosaur mode, though, this guy looks absolutely fabulous. I'm going to give them high marks on that, so 9 out of 10 for aesthetics. Regarding the articulation, again, keeping in mind this is nostalgia factor, the robot mode articulation has almost everything that you're going to want, even out of a modern figure, except maybe that ankle tilt, to get a little bit better dynamic poses, and really just overall a little bit more articulation period in those ankles. I think that would have helped quite a bit. And as far as the dinosaur mode goes, much like the modern figure, if they would have had some articulation in the dino head or in the tail, that would definitely lend itself to making it more fun for dynamic posing in dinosaur mode. But keeping in mind that this is a 20 plus year old design, I'm giving articulation on this figure a 9 out of 10. Regarding accessories, this is where I think he falls short, even by 1996 standards, especially if you compare him to the original G1 Optimus Primal. That G1 Optimus Primal was absolutely loaded with accessories. The Megatron here, I mean, he comes with the hip guns, and that's fine. It's not really the quantity of accessories, it's the overall quality of them, if you will. So those projectiles that he fires, they're just black molded plastic. They're not that exciting, really. So there's a bit of a meh factor when it comes to those. And cool, he has a water gun in his mouth, if that's the kind of thing that you get excited about. I don't. That doesn't do it for me. I'm more of a person who likes more practical applications. I really don't like getting my toys wet unless they're designed to be wet, and I don't think he's designed to be wet or have water in or around his person. So I'm going to go a little low on accessories here. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 on that. Overall quality out of the box, I have no problems with this figure whatsoever. He came with everything he was supposed to. The paint apps look good. The biggest thing that I could say is maybe those knee joints are a little looser than what they could be, but the nice thing with this guy is he pretty much has access screws available for most of his joints, so that's not that big of a deal. Just out of the box, I would have liked to have seen those a little tighter, but it's by no means detrimental. So overall quality out of the box, I'm giving this guy a 9 out of 10. Our last point here is overall value, and even in this one, I took in the nostalgia factor. I mean, I know that people who, are my age, I was collecting the Transformers when G1 came out at the time, right? So these reissues may mean a little more to us than they do to others, but even then, this figure right here is being reissued. It's a Walmart exclusive, I believe. That's where I picked him up, was at a local Walmart, and it's $50 US. So that's a pretty steep price in my opinion. I don't want to say that I was hesitant because I wanted him, but that was right on the edge of me making a purchasing decision that would have ended up with him staying on the shelf instead of coming home with me. So I think $50 is definitely on the high side. So it's really difficult to make that decision at that price point, even with that nostalgia factor. So the value for this figure, I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. So the grand total here, out of a possible 50 points, the G1 Beast Wars Megatron is coming in at 41 points out of 50, which gives him an overall rating of 82%. So from a numbers standpoint, again, keeping in mind a lot of this is predicated on the nostalgia factor, I'm going to recommend this figure that you pick him up. If you're not moved by nostalgia, if you have no interest in this guy, then by no means don't waste your money. $50 is a lot of money that could be going elsewhere. There's a lot of opportunity cost there, where you could put that money toward other things. But if you have that nostalgia factor and you want to see this guy on your shelf, and you've already got some of the other War for Cybertron Beast Wars figures, or even some of those G1 Beast Wars figures, then you're going to want to pick this guy up if you see him. As I stated earlier, this is a Walmart exclusive to the best of my knowledge. I'm sure you can find him online somewhere, but there's no way at all that I would pay more than $50 US for this figure. So with that is going to wrap the review up. I hope this helps. I hope you got some good information out of it. And even if you're not thinking about buying this guy, I hope you were entertained. So if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you think about the channel, what you think about this guy in particular. And until we see you guys in the next review, take care.